And welcome back. Our next conversation is a one-on-one between myself and Principal Librarian Feline Cayetano. She's coming out of the Leo Bradley Library Service, and we're talking 90 years of library and the evolution of library services in this country. Good morning, Feline.
Good morning, Boit Benafi.
Biti Benafi.
It's hard to not say Nidohe.
I know, right?
So anyone can see Cayetano and Cayetano. We are very closely related.
Yes, we are.
And
indeed.
I'm just Isani just reminded me that he used to work at the library.
Yeah, so my first job, believe it or not, was at the Leo Bradley Library. Probably would have been 16 or 17 years old. Began as a summer job, right? And then I began working there on a part-time basis, all through sixth form actually. And so the library and the library system has a very, very close and very dear to my heart, right? But what I've been experiencing, and maybe it's just an observation as an outsider now, is that I don't know that people are accessing books and written information the way we once did back in the days when there was no internet or no ready or easy access to internet. You had to go to a library, pick up a volume, and actually find the information that you're looking for. Let's start there with our conversation, Feline.
All right. So I'll start by saying that the same way how music, you go from tape to CD to now MP3, digital files, streaming, these things, the medium may change, the media may change, but the content remains the same. Now, as you know, there's a different experience when you're browsing. Like, for example, you go to any retailer, e-retailer for books. They will send you their own suggestions.
Yeah.
But if you're going through to the library, you're browsing through and you see, oh, right, beside this book is this book. You get to decide what will come, or you see what is beside it in the chain of how it was cataloged.
Yeah.
But in this way, that, let's say the browsing history of all the other people who, the algorithm decides for you, here are some suggestions.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very much a different experience than your own walking through. So it kind of comes up to where we're in a culture shift of how people are receiving information. Now, I would say that a great number of people still continue to be very tactile learners. And those folks will always have a place at the library and always go. The others, yes, the door is open for them, but they are more so, they know exactly what they want and they go straight to it. They're not going to be looking at it the way that we do and saying, okay, this is beside this title, or this author wrote all of these other ones. Let me go and, one by one go through these series. But people continue to enjoy the library across the country.
Here's the thing, right? I think because I'm such a student of history, my access to the library would be for the national collections primarily, because there's a wealth of knowledge in those books that pertain to Belize, its history and its people, that may not necessarily be online the way one would want it to. So whereas I could find any other book online, some of the older publications that relate to Belize and its history, you could only access that at the National Collection. So for someone like me, I would probably find value in doing that. But let's take that out of the picture and look at the younger students, who are younger users, should I say, who are accessing the library, knowing fully well that perhaps the majority of what they're looking for is right at their fingertips on a device.
To some extent, yes, and others, no.
Okay. And
also, too, there are ethical concerns when you think about what may be accessible to the majority of people.
Yeah.
Pirated books, for example, those things. But when I think about what you're talking about when it comes to the National Collection, Belizean information overall, it is definitely up to us to place that information online, and which is why we have the Digital Library of the Caribbean, which hosts that. And then you also have Access 501. The library collaborated, with the ministry and other sections of the Ministry of Education to put everything as much as possible within a certain amount of time, and it continues to build with Access 501. So you have Belizean ebooks, you have the Belizean newspapers, digitized and accessible through those two portals. you started out at the library. The National Collection, I was looking through it. Not only are there books, right, but there are books. You have audiovisuals. You
Yes.
have posters, political posters. You know, you see some of our gray-haired predecessors when they had hair,
Yes.
or when they had black hair instead of white hair. I will
Or
name
no
no
hair.
names. All of that, right?
Yeah.
So you see people in the evolution of their political careers, and that's really beautiful. Our uncle Baba Roy,
Yeah.
he worked at a library one spell, and so I had found different aunts and uncles, and even my great, maybe another third great grandfather who was an alcalde in Barranco.
All right.
You know, but it's because I knew my family tree. I was able to go there and find that
information.
exactly.
Yes.
Right.
I have a question for you, Feline. So, 90 years later, how do we now foster the love of learning through reading to our younger generation? So, I'm what you would call a bibliophile, right? Love books. I collect books. If they're not in the physical form, now I have a whole library of ebooks on my device, but books are everything. But I feel like we're a dying population.
You know
That's
what?
just my feeling.
That's what I thought too. And because every time when I'm in an interview or speak with somebody who doesn't know me, and I tell them I'm a librarian, they're like, "What? People still go to libraries?"
Exactly, right?
That is like the number one question I guess all of us have. But the thing is that there are others who come to me and say, "Miss, you're my hero. You know, I
Yeah.
love libraries. I've been going
Yeah.
since so." And so I said, I thought about this year, you know, and I'm covering up, but this is the 90th anniversary logo.
Yeah.
We had a competition for the logo and the theme, and then we have now a competition for poetry.
Yeah.
But in these 90 years, when we've thought about it, we go from shelves to screens, right? And that really captures, I mean, there's more to the theme than that, but we think about that evolution, where we started, brick and mortar, to, you know, now we have some e-books, everything, right? E-resources. But it's the love of reading itself, and that really and truly comes from the home. Like me, when I was, my parents are teachers, so I always saw them reading. And
So are mine.
you know, exactly. So it really comes down to parents. I really want to kind of put a call to action in this whole year to tell parents, read. Let your children see you reading. And if they see you reading, then they will also read.
Yeah.
You know, this morning, and this is a kind of a personal story, but it was in Belmopan, it tends to get very cold and the water gets cold, right? So I was renting a house that didn't have hot and cold water. And so to get through the mornings, I would sing.
Yeah.
And then my son reminded me, yes, and then when you got better technology, then you started to put a song on repeat.
Yeah.
And so then he got to learn a full catalog of different songs from my era because I was playing those songs that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And similarly, you know, a parent to child with books, you know, there are certain books that I was reading back in the day that I felt they didn't really capture, let's say, my cultural experience. And I did not want that for my sons.
Yeah.
So I deliberately told people in our lives, you know, specifically to my parents, if you're going to give the boys any books, let it be books that look like them.
Yeah.
Let them be the stars of these books. You know, and
That's an interesting
right?
perspective.
And so if you are, the books foster, you know, a sense of self-esteem. If you always see somebody else as the star of the movie, the star of the book, you know, if their story is privileged above yours, then of course your self-esteem kind of diminishes,
Yeah.
kind of subconsciously.
I'll share my personal experience with you then, right? So, because my parents are also educators, we grew up in a household where my dad had a library, small library, but it has encyclopedias, it has all the books that he was into, right? And he had a subscription to Reader's Digest. So every so often we'd get copies of Reader's Digest. He also had a subscription to the National Geographic, right? And so I would just go through those and I would get lost in books for days, right? So that's where my love of reading and then writing came about. But that's because, as you've mentioned, the parents set the framework for that. Now, as a parent, my daughter enjoys reading on her off time. My son, device is everything. So we need to find now a way how to get him to enjoy reading, even if it's not in the physical form, but on his device. I say that to show you the evolution of how information is being consumed, right? I go from everything is physical and print to now my kids, everything is in digital form, and they could share, they could do their own little edits and all of these things in the wink of an eye, right? How has the National Library Service and Information Systems been able to keep up with these changes over time?
The tricky part really is how do we fit the needs of all?
Yeah.
And you know, there are many library theories and library leaders who have always said, give the right book to the right person, or for each person there's a right book or a right.
Yeah.
So that way we have, okay, you have to have a collection that has reference books, that has non-fiction, fiction, and you know, it goes on and on.
Biographies and all of these other
the
things.
whole
right? Yeah.
gamut, right? And for children as well. So we are, this generation, for us, we can fit in either category. We can be analog, we could be digital. Then the generation ahead of us, they are mostly analog, but they're in a digital world. So our aim for that generation is to teach them how not to get scammed on WhatsApp, how to send us more than good morning, a happy Thursday, happy Friday, forwarded messages, know which ones are actually us before somebody uses AI to tell them, hey, give me $500, you know, I'm somewhere in India, and I'm right beside them, but somehow they see, okay, right? So digital literacy, transforming the services that we have, updating the services that we have. Because in 1935, the library still stands on North Front Street, right?
The Turton Library.
Turton Library. And I have a friend, I was telling a friend of mine, she's a Belize City native. And she said, and I told her we have to retrofit that library. You know, it is reaching this age and stage, so we are seeking some updates, sponsorship. We're seeking, you know, architectural plans that would keep the integrity of the building. And she's like, no.
You know, speaking of the Turton Library, I think about a year and a half there, because I started off at the Leo Bradley Library, and then I use this Lee word because that never really that, but I'll just call it that, right? I was seconded to to Turton Library, and for many years, all the students from St. Mary's, from St. Catherine Academy, and all of the other high schools on the south side in that particular area accessed the Turton Library. And for a while, the same National Collections was housed there. So when they're looking for information on Belize, and then behind was like a children's section all the way at the back, right? Yes. And it was interesting to me when I saw people from all walks of life come into that library. I could recall Gilroy Usher Sr., who's now the area rep for Port Loyola. Every day he would be in the library writing his notes. Every day you see some kids come in with their books and what have you. But that was a altogether different cultural experience then from what I presume it is now. You have young people, children, older folks, people who just walk in and read newspaper because they don't want to buy the volume for themselves, so they go in there and sit down and go through all the things that are there. But I don't know that that's the same now. What's your observation?
Pretty much the same.
Okay.
You know, the flow of traffic is slightly different. We have less teenagers who come in, let's say, individually.
Yeah.
They come in groups. Yeah, they tend to come in groups. And we find that they are more aware of the library and more into what the library is bringing. If they come in the class, if they come, let's say we have a program that is specific for their age range, then they're more likely to come. We also have different programs like the Poetry Night, you know, that especially at Turton, that brings a younger audience, and that kind of has a range as well. But what I've seen at Turton, because you know I'm at Leo Bradley now, but at Turton, same you say the neighboring schools,
Yeah.
that's still the traffic. You have parents, you have grandparents. Like you said, the newspapers, brings a draw. The National Collection is a subset of the National Collection remains at Turton, but the majority is in Belmopan at the National Heritage Library.
Nice.
Right? So that bridge continues, but there's something called interlibrary loan. So if anybody all over the country goes to a library and what they want about Belize is not there, and frankly, any other book that is written by a Belizean, that can be sent to their
Give you
library.
a little history lesson, right? About myself and my humble upbringing, right? I attended St. Joseph Primary School, and right around the corner was Cinderella Library. That was the first library I was ever familiar with. And I recall as a child, I borrowed a book, and I fell in love with the book. But they never teach me, well, maybe they did. I wasn't as responsible then as I am now as an adult, right? So I read the book, fell in love with it, and I misplaced it. But back then, when you go to the library and you take out a book, you incur late fees once you don't return it on a particular date when it's due, right? And so I lost the book, and I never went back to the library because I figured the amount is accruing and I can't pay that, so I just stopped with a library. Didn't go back to library until I was in sixth form. As I said, I took on my first job.
Yes.
And I realized that the only thing that kept me abreast of everything in literature and stuff was what my parents had going on at home. But I had to kind of get over the fact that, look, I can't just run away from this wealth of knowledge if this is what I'm into, right? And so I read everything that passes by. It's just one of those things. Anything where in a writing catch my eye, I make sure that I read it. But that's a skill that you have to be able to pass on to other people. And I reiterate, I don't know if I feel that energy anymore.
Well, let me
that
give
we're
you-
doing that, we're passing that skill on.
You know, it's more so the same way how people share their favorite film.
Yeah.
When you share your favorite book, that tends to have people excited. And there was a culture of sharing your favorite book. So, and there continues to be, like I would say your co-host, Miss April, she's a family friend.
Yeah.
I call her Nibase, niece, because she and my nephew are very close.
Yeah.
And there was a time when I would come up to meetings in Belize City and she'd be coming here to work. And I would tell her, listen, over the weekend I read this book. And I would get so excited about the book. And within a week, she would get the book because she heard my enthusiasm about the
Yeah.
book. Right?
You're her reference point in a manner of speaking.
Right.
Yeah.
And we tend to have the same taste in these 300-page books that are really take you on an adventure, winding, twisty road, and
Yeah.
lots of rich characters and scenery. But it really is up to you, fellow readers. If you're concerned, then tell other people like that. Share that joy.
All right, so before we wrap this up, I'll ask you what your top 5 books are.
Oh,
Then you can ask me what are my top 5. Then we call it quits,
I
right?
cannot.
You cannot?
No.
You can't think of. Okay, so who's your favorite author?
All right, so right now, Nydia Okorafor, Fiona Zed, Dr. Current Morther Lewis, right, a Belizean author. There would be Chimamanda, right? And I would say Jamaica Kincaid continues to be the top.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. All right, so my 5, right? So I fell in love with this book that I still, from time to time, go back to. It's called Their Eyes Were Watching God from Zora Neale Hurston, right? And then the entire V.S. Naipaul series, right? I also do some Ziegel, but I'm also into political fiction, right? So there's an author that I follow closely, Brad Thor. Excellent if you're into, all of these geopolitical things with countries and espionage and them things, right? Just like Tom Clancy. So I personally try to have a wide range of, authors that I follow, because I believe that information has to be universal, right? So you can't just limit yourself to one type of literature,
Yes.
one genre, one area of lit, right? You have to be able to be well-rounded and read everything. My final question to you, what are we doing about 90 years? How are we celebrating 90 years of library?
So we started off the first week of December 2025 with our general meeting. We had a staff trip. We had Love Your Library Day. We had anniversary celebrations of not only Leo Bradley, but also Turton Library. Then we ended off with the holiday celebrations that happen annually. So annually, there's what at Leo Bradley is called the All Year Reading. Others call it a Christmas party. They, a series of things. But members of each library, they come together at their branch and, they celebrate. They also have different learning activities. It's an array of things that takes place. And right now, as I said before, we did a theme competition that was in-house, logo as well in-house, and now we're branching out, and on February 20th is the deadline for the poetry competition, which has a youth category, children's category, teen, and then we also have adult. So those are posted on the library's website, bnlsis.org. We will also potentially have a jingle.
All right.
We're kind of like, we're playing with that one, more so because none of us are singers. So we'll probably call it, good friends who are musicians to guide us when it comes to that. But definitely we will have a painting competition, and we want to also give out some advocate awards. We are really, why we have lasted 90 years is community support.
Yeah.
Right? And community equals from the child who pays their late fees, to the
Don't rub it in,
to the donors who
mine's supposed to be at $10 million by now, but yes.
To the donors who pay for people's membership.
Yeah.
To the donors and sponsors who give technology, who enable us to do what we have done so much for so long with the limited funds and grants that we're able to get. And it's ongoing because all over the country, we have 48 libraries. We gone from one, and let's say in 1935, one library.
Yeah.
1936, there were about 6 shelves in district commissioner's offices. And then, it continues all over the country, expanding and moving from a shelf to maybe a community center to its own building. We go on and on to that evolution. But each library has to go out, each librarian, each member of the staff have to go out and say, hey, how can we collaborate to ensure that children, adults, people of all ages get to enjoy these books, get to learn how to love books and love reading. Because as you know, it's a love of learning.
Final question, right? In 1998, the going cost of a library card, $2, I remember that, right? So what is it now, adjusted for inflation?
It's still $3. It's $3 now.
It's $3 now, so it got
yes,
$1.
$1.
All right, fair enough. Thanks for joining me this morning, Feline. It's been a wonderful conversation. We need to get more young people, more readers into the library system to understand how information is shared and how information is gathered. Once again, thanks very much. This brings us to the end of our conversation, right? So we're going to take another quick commercial, and when we come back, there's more Open Your Eyes. Stay with us.